Right now, on the National Weather Desk, tracking Francine. The tropical storm is expected to become a hurricane before making landfall along the Gulf Coast.
It will move into an environment with low shear as well, helping the storm to strengthen.
We'll also take a closer look at why this hurricane season has been slower than expected.
Disturbances coming off the continent are finding drier air and cooler sea conditions, which don't favor development.
Wildfires across the West are growing, forcing thousands to leave their homes.
I'm just stressed out. I'm just because we could be homeless.
The northern lights could make another appearance tonight in some places. How does one know when it will happen? And a lesson on how wind forms.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. Tropical storm Francine remains a real threat to the states along the Gulf Coast. Within the next 24 hours, it is expected to strengthen into a hurricane, all thanks to extremely warm waters in the Gulf of Mexico. Meteorologist Jen Collins is tracking Francine for us this morning.
We're talking water temperature in the mid-80s where Francine is currently located. Now, as it moves to the north, it will continue to tap into that warm water, and it is expected to strengthen, becoming a hurricane before landfall. Still tropical storm as of the 5 o'clock advisory. Wind right there, 65 miles per hour. You can see showers and thunderstorms associated with it. It will move into an environment with low shear as well, helping the storm to strengthen. Expected to become maybe a Category 2 hurricane before landfall late Tuesday into early Wednesday, and then eventually move its way across the Mississippi River Valley. In the rest of the Atlantic Basin, we have two other areas we're monitoring for development. The first one, the odds of development have dropped down to 40%. And then the other one has another high chance of development for a tropical wave moving off the coast of Africa. This one is expected to move across the central Atlantic here over the next couple of days.
Today, September 10th, is considered the peak of hurricane season, but as you've noticed, it's been surprisingly quiet. Meteorologist Lauren Oleski explains why today is so significant.
Hurricane season runs from June 1st to November 30th. Today, September 10th, is considered to be the peak day of the Atlantic hurricane season. Take a look at this graphic here. This top point, that is September 10th. So it's been a rather quiet start to our season so far. Yesterday, we did finally get our 6th named storm. But yes, September is the peak of the Atlantic hurricane season. And here's why. These are all of the hurricanes that have made landfall in the United States during the month of September since 1950. There's a lot of them. There's over 40. So yes, September is the time that we typically see the most active period. What we're looking at here is what we would generally see. Now, usually by September 9th, which was yesterday, we would have 8 named storms. Again, so far, we've only had 6. So we are a little behind on schedule in terms of how many named storms that we've seen. However, the season isn't over just yet. There is still plenty of time to see more activity developing across the Atlantic Basin.
And as we said, the 2024 hurricane season has been historically slow, especially when you consider that most experts were forecasting a historically active season. Colorado State University Philip Klotzbach posted on X that Francine is the first Atlantic named storm since Ernesto on August 12th. The last time that the Atlantic had no named storm formations from August 13th through September 8th was 1968. So why has it been so quiet? Meteorologist Emily Gracie has some answers.
The Atlantic hurricane season hasn't been quite as active as expected. Here are 4 possible reasons. La Niña's delayed arrival. The Pacific climate pattern typically reduces wind shear in the tropics and keeps the Atlantic warm, both of which help hurricanes form and grow, but it's been slower to develop and may not arrive until fall. Africa's monsoon season has been farther north this year. That means disturbances coming off the continent are finding drier air and cooler sea conditions, which don't favor development. Saharan dust activity also extended into August, much later than usual. While ocean temperatures are still very warm, there's a small area of abnormally cool water near the equator, which could be stunting hurricane development. Warm air at the surface and cool air aloft create rising air, which leads to instability and helps storm formation. The air aloft has been warmer than normal this season, making it tough for storms to form. But don't forget, we're just halfway through the season, which runs until November 30th. There's still plenty of time for activity to ramp up. For the National Weather Desk, I'm meteorologist Emily Gracie.
And now to wildfires. Several of them are burning in the western United States, including in Oregon, Nevada, and California. Thousands of acres are burning, and thousands of people have been ordered to leave their homes, many having already lost their homes to the flames. One of the largest fires is the line fire in California. As Joy Benedict reports, the blaze has burned more than 20,000 acres since Thursday.
With smoke-filled skies and fire on the ridge, thousands living in and near the San Bernardino National Forest kept one eye on the hillside.
Well, we take what we feel is most valuable and what can't be replaced.
Mike Cerna lives in Mentone on the edge of the forest. He's one of 45,000 people in an evacuation warning area.
We are packed and ready when, seems like we're in pretty imminent danger. We'll be ready to skate out of here.
His neighbor, Norm Bradley, plans to stay.
Embers are our biggest scare. If it gets big, those embers start flying all over, and there's a lot of dry patches, and those catch, it's a whole new ball game.
The line fire has been burning since Thursday when it sparked near Highland. Firefighters pushed the flames away from the homes Friday, but over the weekend it exploded, now consuming 23,000 acres and threatening more homes in the mountain communities like Running Springs and Angeles Oaks.
Right now our main concern is this east side. There's still a few ways in and out, but if one of those gets cut off, then you only have that one way in or out, and that could be very chaotic.
Back in the fire zone, it's mostly an aerial fight because of the steep forest terrain. But crews are working around the clock to increase containment as everyone waiting and watching just hopes the winds stay calm.
If we had wind, it would be over.
Evacuations remain in place as firefighters continue to battle the Boyles Fire burning in Lake County, California. The fire started Sunday afternoon and has so far burned 30 homes and dozens of vehicles. No injuries have been reported. According to CAL FIRE, the blaze is 40% contained. However, fire crews stress the danger is not over and low humidity and wind could cause it to flare up again. And take a look at this video showing you just how fast these wildfires can move. This is time-lapse video of the so-called airport fire in California. The fire has burned over 5,000 acres and forced thousands of people to evacuate their homes. Officials say the fire was started unintentionally by public works employees using heavy equipment in the area. The Davis fire continues to burn south of Reno, Nevada. It's already left behind a trail of devastation. In a matter of hours, it destroyed multiple homes in its path in the Washoe Valley. Anthony Ramos spoke with two residents who lost everything in the fire.
It's very surreal. It's the only word I can come up with. It's surreal.
Words of disbelief from one of several victims of the Davis Creek fire.
It was about 2:45 in the afternoon. I get a call from my mom who's like, oh my God, they're evacuating everybody.
A large fire breaking out Saturday afternoon in Washoe Valley near the Davis Creek campgrounds, sending surrounding residents into survival mode.
We had, in a matter of 90 minutes from the fire starting to our house being burned down is how long it was. Our lives completely changed in a matter of 90 minutes.
Both Aaron Sims and Hannah Hubiar losing everything.
I was just devastated. I didn't want to get out of bed, didn't want to do anything.
For Hubiar, finding out her home was gone came from fire officials through social media.
I saw a compilation video posted, and the first 5 seconds of the video was my house with flames coming out of bedroom windows in my kitchen.
Sims, on the other hand, finding out about evacuation from relatives in his home.
None of us thought that we would lose anything. We just kind of, it just seems so far-fetched.
For both victims, it's not just a house that was lost, with priceless heirlooms, now forever distant memories.
We lost most of at least our direct, family memorabilia that you can't get back. You can't get any of that back.
All their heirlooms, they're gone. My grandparents' stuff is gone. My aunt, who just passed away a couple months ago, all of her stuff is gone.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition.
SpaceX launched the Polaris Dawn early this morning. Dawn at dawn, it works. The 4 astronauts on board will attempt the world's first ever private spacewalk. After a few orbits, the spacecraft will orbit at an altitude of 870 miles, higher than any human has flown since the last Apollo mission in 1972. The crew includes a billionaire entrepreneur, a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel, and 2 SpaceX employees. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll find out how space weather is forecast. And we'll look at why one Pennsylvania town is being invaded by skunks.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with Look at the Northeast. We have a great stretch of weather on the way in the Northeast in the coming days. Today we should have highs again in the 70s, near 80 in some areas down towards New York. Here we are during the morning hours. Look for a lot of sun. There'll be a few clouds in northern New England, but sun should rule the sky courtesy of high pressure. Cool nighttime temperatures are expected. In fact, early morning lows on Wednesday will probably be in the 40s and low 50s for a good chunk of the Northeast. But by afternoon, we're back in the 70s to near 80.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Bailey. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. A quiet pattern is settling in. With the exception of the far northern Pennsylvania, we're not seeing much of anything across the Mid-Atlantic. High pressure continuing to build in means it will stay dry, it'll stay sunny, it'll be very quiet and very comfortable. Low humidity is the name of the game. Feeling wonderful. Temperature still reaching the mid-80s for your Tuesday afternoon, 70s in the mountains. And same for your Wednesday. Very similar. Low humidity, but comfortably warm.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs. We're looking at 91 in Nashville, 84 in Raleigh, 87 Macon, over in Jacksonville, about 82 degrees, 90 West Palm. Looks like a hot one out there. Over the Gulf, we're looking at a formation of tropical storm Francine, and this storm is expected to strengthen to a Category 1 hurricane. And the forecast track at this time is taking it up towards Louisiana, making a landfall, then kind of riding up through the Mississippi Delta, dropping plenty of rainfall as we get towards Tuesday night.
The National Weather Desk.
The northern lights could be visible again this week in many northern states. A coronal mass ejection, essentially an eruption of material from the surface of the sun, happened on Sunday. It's expected to reach Earth later today, and that means the aurora could be seen tonight and tomorrow. Now, that forecast came from NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center. You may remember early back in May that there was an historic solar storm that spawned northern lights, and they were seen as far south as Florida. There was also a massive effort going on behind the scenes to keep the power grid functioning. Emily Gracie spoke to someone from the Space Weather Prediction Center about the successful forecasting of this event.
We put out a G3 watch right in the middle of the range, about 36 hours before the CME arrived here at Earth. That got upgraded to a G4 watch. That's the top watch we put out. We don't do a G5 watch. That was done 24 hours before the storm arrived here at Earth. That's incredible. The last time we put out a G4 watch was in the year 2005. At that intensity, those severe and extreme levels, they induce currents that don't belong there onto the power grid. That gets onto these lines and that can overheat transformers and damage them to the point of no repair where they'd have to get replaced. And that's just the power grid. So for 24 hours plus, we were constantly engaged with the power grid of North America, and they were sweating it out, but they were mitigating the issue.
What are some of these long-term, life-threatening impacts of the power grid going down or satellites not being operable?
Yeah, it's critical, right? We take everything for granted. Our water system, that we turn on the faucet in our house, that relies on electricity and pressures that are worked with that. Think about the traffic lights. Those would not be functioning. Airports would be shutting down. I mean, the implications, refrigeration, right, would go down. And there's massive stores of refrigeration that the government has for emergency response. And we have so many catastrophic terrestrial weather events or man-made events these days. They have these to respond.
I've heard some scientists say that we're overdue for that sort of event.
Emily, I think that's fair. I think that's fair to say that we are overdue, because we are. There's been a lot of work done over the last 10 to 20 years around the world, global efforts. Not so much about strengthening the grid or strengthening satellites. Some of this just can't be done without enormous cost. but they're ready. They have plans. They have actions. We have support. We can safely say that the storm in May was the most successfully mitigated extreme space weather storm in history.
If you want to hear more about space weather, you'll want to listen to this week's episode of our podcast, Off the Radar. You can find it anywhere you get your podcasts. And the northern lights are not the only beautiful sight in the sky, but there are some weather folklore about red skies and what that could mean for sailors. Meteorologist Joy Bettenhausen posted about it on Instagram. Let's take a look.
Okay, have you ever heard of the saying, red at night, sailor's delight? Red in the morning, take warning? Well, there's actually some scientific explanation behind that, so we're going to dive into this. So in the last video, we covered why the sky was blue, and it all has to do with wavelength and light traveling through essentially particles or tiny water droplets. Now we see the blue sky because remember those water droplets act like prisms. Blue has a shorter wavelength, so it's able to be scattered out a bit better. But what happens is when we get this kind of red shading in the sky, this can be due to inversions trapping down pollutants. Red has a longer wavelength, so these pollutants actually are able to scatter that about better compared to when we have a kind of clearer atmosphere. So that's one reason why we could see kind of that reddish color. Now onto the weather side of things. Now high pressure allows for sinking air, so it's easily trapping pollutants in that inversion scenario. Take this example above. You've got high pressure out to the west. So red sky at night, you're looking out to the west, the sun's setting. That means high pressure is coming towards you because weather systems usually travel from west to east. That means sunny skies, nice fair weather. Reverse it, red sky in the morning, you're looking east, that means high pressure is leaving, and there's a chance you could see a storm on the way, and that's why that scenario kind of makes sense.
Now, red skies at night is just one of many different lures that exist. Meteorologist Jeff Exline recently posted about one involving leaves and their ability to predict if it's going to rain.
Some weather folklore works better than others. One that doesn't work all that well, but I hear a lot in the summertime, is this one. When leaves turn their back, 'tis a sign it's going to rain. Well, if it's a sunny day, a windy day, you're going to see the backside of the leaves because the wind is blowing it around. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to rain. And I think where this stems from, though, is summertime rains. In the summertime, you get humidity, which can curl up leaves, especially maple leaves. They get curled in high humidity. Also, in the summertime, you get thunderstorms. And if you're ever outside before a thunderstorm, sometimes you get that big gust of wind and the temperature drops. We call that an outflow boundary in meteorology. And it's basically some cool air being rushed from the storm. And that causes a brief gust of wind. And I think that's where this saying comes from. But it doesn't work all the time, of course, because when you have sunny days and windy days, sometimes you just don't have rain.
And the wind, of course, is invisible, but its effects are everywhere. Meteorologist AJ Mastrangelo explains how it forms.
How does our wind form? Well, it has to deal with more in the way of pressure differences. So, of course, we get low pressure systems. That air rising does create more of a lower pressure, but on the other hand, high pressure develops when we have sinking air. And when we do see these two kind of come into fruition very close to each other, well, that's when we start to see a little bit of some wind starting to develop. That air flows from high to low pressure, creating that wind. And if we see a greater difference in temperature between those high and low pressure systems, then we do see more in the way of some stronger, gustier winds. So let's talk about wind speeds. Leaves fall, whole trees start to sway when we get to 25, 35 miles per hour. Tropical storm force, though, that's up to 45 miles per hour. And we start to talk about severe weather as well. That's when we can see broken branches, wind damage possible. 65 plus, hurricane force is 73. That's when we start to see uprooted trees and structural damage. And it really depends on the foliage, too. More leaves on the trees means those trees can fall a little bit easier, but less leaves on the trees, and we actually don't see the trees kind of have as much resistance there to the wind.
Now, a smelly problem for folks in southeast Pennsylvania. Skunks are invading and taking over their backyards. Yasmin Cohen has that story.
There's people in this neighborhood that they kind of tolerate them. You basically learn to live with them, I guess. I chose not to.
The skunks are aggressive, and so is the smell here in the Akron borough.
It's pretty bad. I mean, it'll wake you up. If you walk out the door and you get a whiff of that, you like this, you're awake. You don't need coffee. We don't drink coffee around here. We have skunks.
Donald Trout caught this one on camera strolling through his neighborhood, and he says his just evicted an entire family of skunks living under his shed.
It was pretty bad, the whole experience. There was babies, and the mother was panicking. It was just it was a bad situation.
Officials advise that anyone who sees the animals should use extreme caution and report the sighting to the Pennsylvania Game Commission.
Time now for a short break, but first we soar over Utah's Mono Reservoir.
Well, a very good Tuesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. Heating up across the plains, some 90s, a lot of sunshine across most of the Midwest for the day today. It's going to be a pretty nice day for us. As we head into your Wednesday, still dry and warming up a little bit more for most of the Midwest. Then we start to see some rain starting to push its way in from the south by the time that we get to Thursday from Francine. Although most of the Midwest still remaining dry for Thursday. We'll keep an eye on Francine for later this week.
Good Tuesday morning. I'm meteorologist Joe DiCarlo, and the watch and warning map continues to grow here ahead of Tropical Storm Francine. Hurricane warning in effect along the Louisiana coastline. So through your day today, we'll likely see Francine become a hurricane as it moves just off the Texas coast, and it's headed into southern Louisiana by Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. So the next 24 hours or so, it's the time to prepare across extreme far southeastern Texas and southern Louisiana.
Well, hi there, everybody, and a good Tuesday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Shannon ODonnell, getting deeper into the month of September, which tends to be a hot month in the Golden State. We'll see temps in San Diego on the sizzling side at 86, still back into the triple digits around Phoenix and Tucson, and a warm 91 today out of Boise, Idaho. Next weather maker, eventually some wet weather staring into Seattle and Portland by late Tuesday night, some air quality issues in eastern Oregon, and again, very hot in California. And that's the scene from here.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
A severe storm over Lake Ontario included sights of lightning and some cloud rotation. Also, these formidable clouds dumped heavy rain into the lake. On land, the rocky weather sparked flooding in the Rochester area, but Monday afternoon's weather was a far cry from Sunday evening when this gorgeous sunset bid farewell to the day.
Listen to Off the Radar. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.
Have you ever noticed it seems to be colder at night when skies are clear? Meteorologist Amanda Verrier explained why in the recent TikTok post.
Have you ever noticed on cloudless nights your nighttime low temperatures fall a lot faster than if you had clouds in the sky? Well, there's actually a meteorological term for this, so let's get into it. This term is radiational cooling, and what makes this more pronounced? The ingredients need clear skies and calm winds. So what happens is this is just the cooling of Earth's surface. So all the heat that we gain throughout the day is just being released back out. So there you have it. Clear skies at night lead to cooler nighttime lows.
see you right back here tomorrow when we'll be tracking what will likely be Hurricane Francine heading for Louisiana.